Now, this week's food challenge was theme related, just like last week, as opposed to taking a few ingredients or one ingredient and making a dish out of something. And this week's theme was a rock and a hard place. Most of us in our early 20s had absolutely no idea what our manager was talking about until we actually looked it up and we found out that being stuck between a rock and a hard place actually is being caught in a situation where there are two outcomes, neither of which are really good. So, for example, you're a boss and you have this one employee who's not really good at his job. If you fire them, you have to go looking for a replacement, which can take longer than expected. And if you still hire them, then great, you have employees, but that could mess up the quality of your work. And it could possibly screw up your reputation by keeping an employee who's not very good at his job. Outcomes like that. And the rock and a hard place I decided to interpret with mac and cheese based on two things. One of which was more based on essential items and groceries, which, anyone can relate to in this pandemic. And two was on a personal level. Now, the pandemic level, I always thought about wanting to make mac and cheese for this food challenge, and I thought, okay, let's put myself in a situation where there are no blue box mac and cheeses in my house. I have two outcomes. I could go to a grocery store and get it and risk exposure to the virus, or I could stay home, make it from scratch, which has the possibility of me fucking up making scratch because I've never done it before. This was actually the first time I've ever made it from scratch, and I gotta say, I am probably gonna keep doing it more so in the future because it was delicious. More on that later. The personal rock and a hard place for me was I love doing these food challenges with my dad. He gives me suggestions. He films for me by holding the camera. This week it was tough because he was actually working the day that I needed to get this stuff done, and I thought, okay, there are two outcomes. I could wait around at the very last minute when he comes home from work and we could work on it together, but it'll be very last minute. He might be stressed out based on work. It might be an unhappy experience. Or I could go ahead, make it on my own, and try to do as many of these dishes by myself as I do with my dad, and possibly piss him off for me not waiting long enough for him to give contributions to the overall project, because we love doing these together. And chances are next week I'm probably going to do another dish with him because collaborating in cooking is not only so much more fun, but it's much more necessary. As a breakfast cook, I'm ashamed to admit I have trouble accepting help. Whenever I have 5 or 6 orders all at once, I usually don't ask people for assistance because I don't know what other stuff they have to complete before lunch or at the end of the day. I don't really know what they're doing, but I keep getting told over and over again to not be afraid to ask for help, and I'm getting better at that. I still have my struggles here and there, but I'd like to think that I'm making some improvements. Any coworker who watches this video will probably say bullshit, but what are you gonna do? Anyways, I wanted to make mac and cheese for this food challenge for a while for a couple of reasons. One of which, I have a coworker who actually does mac and cheese cook-offs for charity, and I thought it would be fun to show off a dish like this to her. And the other reason is that there was the Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives episode that I talked about where I got the chicken parm waffle idea. The overall winner of that episode in regards to competition was this homemade mac and cheese where they took penne noodles and cheese sauce, and it looked absolutely delicious. And Fieri's Sons, based on the taste and the presentation, chose that as the winner over the chicken parm waffle. I couldn't believe it, but now that I've made it, I'm happy to say that that was probably for a good reason. I always thought that, when you think of mac and cheese, you just think of tiny macaroni noodles. You don't think of anything else. You don't think of penne or ziti. Penne and ziti are my favorite pasta, and combining that with mac and cheese seems mind-blowing for no real reason, even though anyone can do it. I know I keep saying that I've been a cook for years, but there's still a shit ton of dishes that I've never made for myself, and it's just another great reason of why this challenge is important, not to keep myself occupied, but to broaden my horizons as a cook and hopefully learn some new skills, learn some things that I still need to improve upon in all this time. So, I'm happy to say that even though the segment is called No Perfect Dish, it might as well be because this was one of the best mac and cheeses I've ever made and ever tasted. Anyways, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the dish. Be sure to stay tuned for more cooking videos every Friday, more classic reviews every other day. be sure to check out the links in the description for two very vital organizations that really do need your support right now: the American Civil Liberties Union and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. Both are nonprofit organizations dedicated to protecting the individual rights and constitutional freedom of every citizen in both these fine countries. Give them some love. Check the links in the description below. Be sure to stay tuned for future content, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.